Really?
It is pretty cool.
It is. Yeah.
It is pretty
It's
cool.
like a laser light show or something.
We got Dr. Osborne. I want to push you guys a little closer. Can Helen, maybe can we pull you just so that we can get you guys in the frame. And I'm here when
so
you
excited.
need me.
This is my first ever Torah study.
This is so cool.
Beginning with the very first chapter. I mean,
place to start.
doesn't it get any better than that, right?
This is a good way to begin. So, Monica, you were saying as we were just going on to air, and as I get my glass of water, this is your favorite section of the Bible.
It
right?
is.
So why is this your favorite section?
I think that in many ways, everything that follows after Genesis 1 is just a reiteration of it.
Right.
It's like a performance of it in different ways. Let's see my bearings here.
What's your favorite section of the Bible, if any, Helen? Revelation.
Yeah.
The Gospels really touch me.
I love the Pauline epistles.
Yeah, the letter to the Romans.
It changed my
Second
life.
Thessalonians.
Corinthians.
Corinthians is always good on a Thursday afternoon. Do you have a favorite section, Helen?
Absolutely not. Not yet. But I'm sure that by the end of these Torah studies I will.
Oh, you will.
Yeah.
So how do you look at this text, Helen? Do you look at this as God's immutable word? Do you look at this as the creation of a lot of
Trick questions.
men 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, edited together over centuries? Do you look at these as men inspired by the divine? Do you look at this as like any more profound than Shakespeare, less profound than Shakespeare and Homer, or how do you look at this text?
At this point in my life, I look at it as options 2 and 3.
Okay.
Sort of a mix of options 2 and 3. And as for, I don't know that I would compare any of it to Shakespeare, because they just feel really different and separate to me.
What about as far as profundity? Where would you place this among the books that you've read?
Well, you have to remember, we are starting with Genesis today,
Right.
and I haven't read it all the way through.
Right.
So, I think maybe we should revisit that question in like
Later.
a year.
Well, and honestly, I think you could, because I've taught Bible as literature, right? And I found that you can stay on not just Genesis, but Genesis 1 and 2 for like 2 months. Like, there's enough in Genesis 1 and 2 to stick with it. Probably an entire semester, actually.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's packed. It's packed with stuff, and it's packed with contradictions. I think that's what I love about it. The fact that there are so many contradictions. It contradicts itself at every turn.
Where did you teach the Bible as literature? You taught it in New York for the 92nd Street Library.
Oh,
right?
no, I taught,
Or was it you taught Midrash?
yeah, I taught Midrash, like a
Okay.
feminist Midrash,
And then
your
it-
favorite.
I love them.
Yeah, I know you do. I know.
Almost as much as Emmanuel Levinas.
Yeah, almost.
Almost.
Almost. Inscrutable, right?
But deep.
Oh,
Deep and wise.
No, I taught Bible as literature at a university in the Midwest.
And how much time did you spend on those two chapters of Genesis?
Genesis 1 and 2. Probably at least a month.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How are you able to get so much out of it? Because I know one problem I have is that I've read this like 150 times. So how are you able
what
to
we
keep
would
getting
do,
stuff
we
out
would
of
we
it?
would close read it, and I think I think translation matters. And every week I'm talking about how great my translation is compared to everyone else's.
Right.
Because it allegedly it preserves all of the poetry and the rhythm and the lyricism of the Hebrew. It's supposed to be the closest to the Hebrew that we have. And so just with the first verse, like here, my translation, instead of, it doesn't say in the beginning, God created, right? As if it's something that happened one time. It says at the beginning of God's creating of the heavens and the earth.
Right.
And it leaves it open, right? It implies that creation is ongoing. And that it's continual, and that it's something that, I don't know, I guess continues throughout the duration, not just of Genesis, but the Hebrew Bible in general. So I think that's a big difference, and so I think I can spend a good hour talking about just the difference right in verse 1.
What's the first line of yours?
What's the first line of yours while I look up mine?
When God began to create heaven and earth.
Okay, so
Oh,
again,
that's very similar.
Isn't that
what
interesting?
what translation is this?
This
Okay.
is okay. Hold on. It says in here. This is what I was given at my bar mitzvah.
Because like I know the JPS, like I have the JPS talk, and that doesn't. It's different than that.
This is.
Oh, but that is the.
would have been a different year.
Oh, okay,
See, that's the
it's gotta be the
1985.
year. Okay.
So they
that's
translated it more than
interesting.
once.
When God began. Yeah.
Yeah, because that
that's
implies
cool.
the same kind
That
of
it could
ongoing.
potentially be- yeah, ongoing.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. That's pretty
And
cool. Oh.
mine is the Art Scroll, which is Haredi Judaism, which is right-wing Orthodox Judaism. In the beginning of God's creating the heavens and the earth.
Yeah.
So in all three
Yeah.
translations we're using, it's the process of creation's
Right.
just beginning here, and so
Which
it's
is
kind of ongoing.
Which is a very Jewish way to translate it, because most translations and all Christian translations
right.
see it as one definitive moment when God created
Right.
the world. Right? It just stops there. Like this idea of ongoing creation isn't something that's.
Why does ongoing creation excite you?
I feel like you're baiting me. You're baiting me to get me to talk about
Monica,
Midrash.
we've known each other for
I know.
5 years. When have I ever
Have
baited
you?
you?
Never. Longer than that.
We met at Friday Night Live.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
At Sinai here.
Yeah, Temple
My
Sinai
sister goes religiously.
on a Friday night.
Yes.
And I was sitting, it was like some singles thing, and I was
It was
holding a book.
It was like a Jewish speed dating.
Yeah.
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 And I was holding a book, because I always hold a book.
That's the only reason I had a conversation with
It's
you,
the
is
only
because you were
reason she
holding a
spoke
book.
to me.
You
Yeah,
always
that's
keep
why.
a book in your
I
hand
always
wherever you go.
Yeah, in case I get bored or
That's smart.
waste
I try to do the
time
same.
or whatever. And so Monica liked books, it turned out. It's like she was...
Yeah, I was like, I'll talk to him. He's
yeah,
holding a book.
Yeah. So we started talking about books,
Yeah.
and 5 years later, we were
Yeah.
still talking
we
about
cultivated
books.
some strange kind of friendship.
Right.
That's cool.
Yes.
So seriously, why does the notion of ongoing, say for me, ongoing creation is exciting because it means that what's happening today is still an act of creation, and that it impregnates today with more excitement and meaning. Is impregnate the right verb?
It is, if that's what you mean it to be.
It's
Yeah.
like it
It's a good one
fills,
for
it
creation.
infuses
Yeah, it's just
today.
for creation.
It infuses
Right.
today with more meaning
Yeah.
and excitement.
And I think it's also nice to think about it in the context of, this divine act of creation. It didn't end, the door didn't close on divinity,
Right.
and on the creation of
Right.
divinity, it's
Right.
still potentially happening all around you. This is an act that is ongoing and alive, and that you're a part
Right.
of.
Right. Well, that's what that idea is what keeps Torah alive, right? Instead
Right.
of allowing it to become a cultural artifact that you can
Right.
basically put under some museum glass. I think the idea of ongoing creation extends to ongoing interpretation and
Right.
so on and so forth, yeah.
So it's dynamic, it's alive.
It's alive. It's like a tree. It grows.
But that's exciting. I mean, it's...
It is. That's actually, other than Midrash, and this is all part of Midrash, that's one of the things that I love about Judaism that kind of brought me to Judaism, is the idea of it as something that's ongoing, not just something that happened
back
once.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you study. And this whole idea of ongoing creation extends to like ongoing meaning making, right? And making things, interpreting Torah so that it means something today in the contemporary era.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think is fascinating. I mean, not just about Judaism, but about the Hebrew Bible in general.
So do you think this was written by men, or do you think this was written by God?
See, that's a trick question. It's like it's one of the like there's that one Talmudic story of where they say, is it more important to love God or to love your neighbor? Because at the end of the day, you realize that they're the same thing. So I think it's kind of the same thing. I mean, men wrote it, But I mean, I think it's